I was reading the Seattle Post or one of those newspapers, and there was a little article there about the Nishka court case and the Calder decision, of course. And at that point, what I wanted to do was come back and deal with the whole land question here in British Columbia. And that goes back to, my attendance of not an awful lot of meetings, but enough meetings with my dad to know what he was doing was important. And I remember in particular, a trip that we must have made when I was about 11 years old or 12 years old, through the Okanagan, meeting other chiefs, my dad's peers at that time.
Forrest was a real good supporter of the taxation. Yeah, when I didn't bring it up, he always brought it up.
Well, that development he did at Cook's Ferry was really good. One of the first gas stations in the Indian Reserve. And it goes back to when my dad was chief and the fact that he was trying to deal with this in the 1960s. And through some of my research, I realized that the first meeting in my community about real property tax was in June of 1965 or thereabouts. In 1969, the formation of the Union of BC Indian Chiefs, and I skipped out of school. I just turned 17, skipped out of school for a week to attend the meetings and listening to the discussions that the chiefs were having then. Again, very important, life-changing. This is part of ultimately what was part of my destiny.
And I think Manny, if you really want to know, played hooky for the 6 days that we had the meetings here in Kamloops. And I didn't know it. He didn't, of course, nobody told me. But anyway, I guess maybe that's why he liked taxation. The first meeting we had on taxation was some of the guys that were leasing on the reserve had phoned Phil Gillardy, who was the Minister of Highways, and from Kamloops here, to do the roads. And Phil said, "Oh, sure, I'll do them." And then a couple of days later, he said, "No, I can't do it, because that's a federal responsibility."
And then when I first started dealing with it as a council member, it was in the context of the NDP government under Dave Barrett amalgamating us and making us part of the city of Kamloops. And so all of our tax revenue was leaving the Mount Paul Industrial Park, which my dad had helped set up, to the city of Kamloops as opposed to the regional district or the province.
We went to the provincial government, and of course, they got no jurisdiction on the Indian Reserve. They didn't tell us that, and they said, "That's not our business."
This led to a situation where the result of the tripartite discussions really were 3 recommendations, all aimed at ultimately incorporating us as a municipality. And that's something the Kamloops band rejected. And we put forward a 4th option, which we call the Kamloops option.
And really, it kind of come and go, and we done other things, And Manny was the one that really picked up on it.
And we challenged the provincial government that if we passed the taxation bylaw under the Indian Act, would the provincial government vacate the tax field? And that was the end of the discussions.
It took a long time. It takes a long time. That sense of impatience and we can do it, I think is necessary. But I remember Manny and I saying, we started with the notion that all the tax base on the reserve land was being wasted, because of the flaws in the Indian Act. And so I said, well, why don't we challenge it? Because of the legal definition of surrendered land and leased land. In the Indian Act, the people were not able to get the benefit of businesses right on their reserve. So we started with that, and we lost the first round, and we went to the Court of Appeal, and we lost again. And the judges basically said, This is the way the Indian Act is written, and you're stuck with it. And Manny said, no, we aren't. We're going to change the Indian Act.
So I got a docket, came into my desk one day, and it included a letter to the minister from a Chief Manny Jules that I'd never heard of course. And it was attached to it were about 40 band council resolutions in support of this idea that he was suggesting. So I looked at it and consulted with some of the legal beagles that we had around. And it was an idea to amend the Indian Act, which everybody thought was quite impossible at the time anyway.
When Manny began proposing to amend the Indian Act, which was just a few simple words, I was the first out of the gate to provide a band council resolution in his support. So we had the #1 band council resolution, and wherever and whenever he needed, I would help move a resolution, or politically lobby with him or for him on those issues.
My job was to present the proposal in the inside world of the department and the government, and to work with him in such a way that the concerns that arose from the government side could be addressed by Manny and could be worked into the final proposal. And his job, which was a much bigger job, was to go out into Indian country and talk all across the country with chiefs and councils.
What Manny's done, he's sort of brought ideas like that to things, and a lot of times it's gotten rejected because Manny bears the name in Canada, an Indian country, of Mr. Taxation, I mean, that's what people think about Manny, and I don't think Manny's sort of put off by that or anything.
And I think he had 141 or 142 band council resolutions agreeing to taxation on a reserve. I don't know what year that was. And then in 1988, Bill McKnight was the Minister of Indian Affairs when he put Bill C-115, the Kamloops Amendment, through, and that was for the Indians to collect taxes on a reserve.